to have Nicole Ashley with us. And really, Nicole, when you and I spoke, before I kind of give the big intro here, when you and I spoke originally over the phone, I talked about how great it was that you were going to be covering this concept, because we spend a lot of time in our conversations with other professionals talking about the act of the performance of what we do as creatives. And we spend a little bit less time, if sometimes no time at all, talking about how we relate to our clients and how we relate to running a really successful creative business. And so I think this is the first time we've really ever covered this. And I would argue that it's probably one of, if not the most important part of being a creative. So thank you so much for taking the time today to join us. And I'm super excited. Obviously, you come here to us today being already a very talented, successful artist. So I think that, we don't have to talk about that so much because you've established yourself as a really high level creative. Why, first off, tell me, why is this subject for you so meaningful or so important in terms of being able to communicate it to other professionals and other creatives?
Yeah, I think it's because I mentor a lot of photographers, and inevitably, especially with new photographers versus seasoned, so many artists are focused on what gear to have or what programs they need or all the technicalities behind this career. And it's really easy to lose sight of just how important the customer service aspect is. And I know it sounds like a really boring topic, but it's been crucial for me in my career. And because I put so much work into that side of things, I book out 2 years in advance. I don't have to be a slave to social media. All of my clients are my singing referrals for me because I do focus so heavy on that. And it also gives me peace of mind that if Instagram were to blow up tomorrow or any other social media platform, because I have been focusing on this, that I would be okay. So even though it sounds boring, I think it's so important to talk about.
And I always like to give, I know that probably a lot of people who are going to be tuning into this are maybe familiar with your work too as well, and maybe know a little bit more about you. But for those who are either tuning in that aren't familiar with you or will be tuning in later when this is just a recorded feed, give us a little bit of the origin story of your rise to where you got to today and how you got into photography and the style of photography that you do.
It happened really organically for me. I think as most photographers find that it happens for them, but I was in university to be a teacher. I had a very brief stint in teaching. So by the time I was already finishing my degree, I was shooting for fun and posting that on Facebook of all places. And through friends and family, people would slowly be like, oh, do you photograph this? Or do you shoot this? And kind of word of mouth got around that I was shooting with my Canon Rebel T2i. And I was slowly doing little jobs here and there, most of them for free, just to learn and photographing friends. And it slowly snowballed from there. I remember my first real big gig was a friend of mine who I went to school with asked if I ever photographed sports. And she was working with Rexall, and I started photographing sports just through our connection there. And that led into events and music festivals and band work, and then that kind of seeped into portrait work. So it wasn't planned, it just kind of happened.
And how did you learn to navigate the business of it? Because it's easy to come from this creative side and be like, okay, I can see the evolution of my creativity, the evolution of my photography, but how did you handle the evolution of your business acumen?
Honestly, it was really hard because I've been shooting full time for almost 15 years. And when I started shooting, workshops and mentorship and programs like that just weren't really around. And not to my knowledge were people doing YouTube interviews like this. I was going to YouTube and trying to look up things that way, but it was much more secretive or closed off then. So it was really tricky in the beginning, but I was lucky enough to find some artists that I was like, please, if I take you for coffee, if I pay for your time, can I pick your brain? So it was trickier then. Like now there's so many resources available like this for photographers, which is amazing. Because I would never want to be a roadblock in another creative journey.
Right.
So I'm glad that I can do stuff like this and help artists so they can excel in that arena.
And, you know, it's kind of be, I mean, I'll first assert, so I'm hesitating here because I'm trying to see how I'm going to phrase this question, but I'll first assert, you know, a belief of mine, which is that, you know, YouTube tutorials, live events with, you know, professionals, individual one-on-one mentorship, school programs, all of those things are important learning tools. But on the journey to being good and competent at what we do, part of it is learning to just go and do it and fail. When you're mentoring people and also reflecting back on your experience, could you quantify that in some way? Do you think that you could say, okay, I would say like this percentage would be just going out and doing it and let the failure be the lesson. And then here's this mentorship percentage that actually helps you along and helps you to prevent some failures, but keeps you learning. Do you have an idea of like the space that both of those experiences take up?
Yeah, I actually fully agree with you. I think as much as anyone can hire someone as a mentor or go to YouTube or any other resource out there, what will actually sit with you and change how you do things is you experiencing it for yourself. And I know that the biggest teacher in all of this was anytime I messed up or I failed or something didn't fall through or it didn't turn out how I wanted it to. So it made me hungry to be like, okay, how can I do that better? Or how do I avoid that next time? So, because anybody can tell you stories and like warn you or like tell you different things, but what's the biggest teacher is actually experiencing it yourself.
A healthy dose of trauma.
Yeah. Trauma definitely is involved in the beginning of it, for sure.
I got just one or two more questions, and then what we're going to do is just let the audience know the format here today. I'm going to ask one or two more questions, and then we're going to basically give the stage over to Nicole, and we're going to allow her to share a presentation about all this today. I'm just going to kind of go hide in the backstage there. And then at the end is going to be our opportunity to take questions from the live stream from the audience. If you have them, hold on to them. We've got that forum for the last 10 minutes to do that. So before we get into that, Nicole, let me go back for a second and just talk about the creativity, because you have this privilege, and I would say this earned privilege of not having to rely on Instagram and not having to rely on worrying about, am I going to book work next week or next month? That having this work built out in advance gives you a lot of preparation time, but I would assume as well that it frees up your schedule in such a way that if you want to do something that's a new creative concept, you have sort of the mental and emotional bandwidth to handle it, because nothing is just flying at you last second. So even though you've been in this business for a long time, what role does the creative process still play for you in your work? Is it more blue chip, or are you always trying to kind of modernize yourself, update yourself? What role does creativity continue to play?
Oh, it still is huge. And I think at any point when you feel like you're coasting in terms of, not in terms of bookings, but if you feel like you're coasting in terms of like how you do things, it can, temporarily, it can make you feel good. But because technology and AI and things are always changing, I think if you don't adapt, like, it's problematic. And especially because I am in like the educational atmosphere of this, it's important for me to try out different programs or to keep experimenting with different lighting or different techniques, because I want to keep it interesting for myself too, but I also want to make sure that I have the knowledge around what's going on in the industry or what kind of tools that we have access to. So yeah, I think I feel like I'm in a good place with bookings and in that regard, but I'm still working like almost 7 days a week and like busy, because I am constantly trying to keep up with what is the latest thing or like trying different techniques.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think with that, that gives us a really good understanding of the type of, photographer, creative, and business person that you are. And, for folks to understand that this journey isn't an instantaneous one as well. Like you said, you've been doing this, as a profession for probably more than 15 years. And so for those coming out of like art school or starting, picked up a camera starting, it's not a 2-year journey. This is don't let the internet fool you. it's very much a long term commitment. So I'm really excited for you to launch into this. So I just want to hand everything over to you, and we'll go from there.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I'm gonna adjust my mic here. So, as I said, when you talk about cultivating customer experience or anything in this arena, it automatically sounds like it's going to be a boring presentation, but I promise I've put a lot of work into like making it fun and like interesting for you guys. So I promise it's worth it to stick around to the end. There are a lot of things I love to teach about when it comes to photography, but an important one, like we just talked about, that does not get talked about enough is client experience and why it matters so much. As I mentioned, you can tell this terrible quality photo. I used to be a teacher. When I finished, and this was actually my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, it was a blessing in disguise that the teaching market wasn't that great. So I was only doing small gigs here and there and then playing with photography in the meantime. And while I was doing this, I was very naive about how hard this industry would be to succeed in and to get busy and steady work through. But I think being naive and being impatient played to my advantage, because if something wasn't working, I would just be like, okay, well then I'll try this, or I'll just stay up till 2 a.m. and I'll research this. I think so often I see artists succeed, not because they're wildly talented, but because they are hungry and eager to learn. So that it is something to be said for artists who are very talented, but more reserved, or they're not putting themselves out there. It's really, really important that you do so that people see your artwork, especially in the beginning. So because I was not good, but I was hungry, I think that really helped propel me into this industry. And, sometimes it hits me that if I didn't have a person really pushing me to choose happiness over money, because ultimately I could be working serving jobs or doing a bunch of things at this time in my life and be making more money, because with photography, I didn't make a dime for the first 6 months. And then I think even my first paid gig was $150, but that was a win. That was a win for me. So sometimes it hits me that if I didn't have someone saying yeah, just try for it, that I could potentially be in a totally different industry. And I grew up in a low income household. I started working at 11, under the table, of course, and worked 2 jobs most of my life. And I was even working all throughout high school to help my parents. And it was difficult to change that mindset, to not choose money over passion. But I'm so grateful that I did. And I know for so many artists who either have kids or who are in a situation where they do need money, that can be a hurdle. I didn't get into photography right away. Like I said, I shot everything when I first started. I was photographing concerts, sports, babies, you name it. If there's one thing I could go back and change, I wish I would have really listened to the things that made me really happy and niched in that market sooner. I think I would have saved myself a lot of time, and I could have focused on getting really talented in that arena instead of just doing anything. But it took a few years to learn what suited my style and my personalities and even my capabilities. At the time, like I mentioned, there wasn't a lot of community support, and the industry was deeply competitive. So I had to learn a lot on my own through trial and error. But like we said, I think that was the best teacher and helped propel me even further. Mentorships and workshops weren't really a thing. And this wasn't just the case for photographers, but just artists in general. John, who I said was boyfriend then, husband now, he also went from teaching to being a full-time artist. He was drawing for fun and putting it on social media, and he was actually headhunted by different tattoo artists and different shops. So it's really cool that 3 years after he saw that I made that leap and just said, okay, I'm going to switch and go into a fully creative career with no benefits, no set income, and just pray that it works out. He did the same. And with tattooing, you have to do a full year of apprenticeship minimum where you make no money. So that was really scary because we had to give up, again, not just my benefits, his benefits now, and everything else. But now he's been a full-time artist for almost 7 years. And like myself, he makes more money, has more freedom than if he would have stayed in the safety net of teaching. So if anybody's watching this and they're really like toying with whether or not it's worth it to go full-time as a creative, I promise you it is. Scary at first, so worth it in the end. So because we chose passion over money and gave up a lot of things, because to work as hard as we did in the beginning, we had to miss out on birthdays, on friends' trips. We were renting a basement. We had to like really, really bunker down. But now we can carve out our own destinies. We get to travel the world. We get to make our own schedules, which for me is king. Like that is making your own schedule and not having to ask somebody for time off, the biggest win. And it's been hugely beneficial having a family in these kind of jobs too, because if anything ever pops up, we can build our work around her or her schedules or dance competitions, anything, you name it. So I have a lot of artists who ask me if it's an ideal career for family, and I definitely argue that it is. And aside from the freedom of creating my own schedule and getting to travel the world, I have surrounded myself with an amazing group of creatives, everything from hair and makeup artists to designers, painters, florists, stylists, you name it. And we've really carved out being able to work together. So now when people hire me to shoot in different countries, a lot of the time they hire my best friend who's a hair and makeup artist. So we get to kind of experience this together, which is incredible. And most of my jobs are like having fun with my friends. I was trying to show this. That's what most of our photo shoots end like. And if that wasn't reason enough, at the end of the day, like I get to be a part of the most intimate, happiest moments for people, and I get to create art for a living and help people, and ultimately help people with showcase their legacies to their families. So that's pretty amazing, and I don't take light of that in any regard. And I also get to work with amazing brands and different companies, and so many things have opened up to me because, again, I chose to really, really buckle down and hustle in the beginning. Some of the brands, this has happened later in my career, that I've had the opportunity to work with have been obviously Canon, Profoto, the OWN network, which is Oprah's network. I've done set design and styling and photography for Sephora, L'Oreal, Smeg, Dyson, a bunch of companies. And working with these brands has brought me to really cool places and allowed me to flex my skills in different arenas, such as being hired, again, for styling, set design, doing production design. So a lot of people enter this career and think that if they start shooting one thing, that's it. But it's been a really beautiful experience seeing how it's expanded into other things, which is really fun. And of course, if you look on my social media, my main focus of my work is weddings and portrait work. But as I mentioned, I also work around the world. So I've been hired to shoot in London, in France, Switzerland, New York, Ireland, Italy, Australia, so many places. It's really amazing that my camera allows me to get paid to travel and create for other people, and truly yours can too. Knowing this, would you believe that the number one way I get work is through referrals? So not social media, not paid advertising, referrals. I know this because of how much work and care I put into my client experience, and I've done extensive research through different programs and even like a social media expert who was shocked to be like, wow, I really thought yours was going to be Instagram, but it's referrals. Now, people will always remember how you made them feel. Even if you shot an amazing set or captured a wedding beautifully, but you were a jerk, it's game over. And it's really good insurance to be a nice human, because vice versa, if you only shot a mediocre set or a session, but you were amazing and fun and like really kind, they're gonna love the photos so much more. I think everyone has experienced at one point in their life something that was tainted because someone's personality or something they did, which kind of ruined the other beautiful aspects of it. So I always try to keep that in mind, that obviously the goal is to completely kill it and provide an amazing experience or to completely kill it and to provide amazing photos for them. But knowing that I can give them an amazing experience is going to make them love me even more. Now, this applies to everyone that you deal with when it comes to shooting. So if I'm on set for, say, a book cover or some sort of fashion shoot, I am kind and patient with every single person involved. This includes everyone from the model to hair and makeup team to a custodian, everyone. And with weddings, the same thing applies. I go out of my way to be helpful and kind to everyone, like obviously the couple in the bridal party, but everyone from someone's aunt to Uncle Bob, or somebody who wants to ask me a million questions about my camera, or if someone's had a little too many like bubbly pops on the dance floor, I am kind to everyone. This includes helping others with get a better shot on their iPhone, taking a couple photos of the guests at the wedding, helping bridal party with their outfits. Yes, I've had to sew in people into their dresses before and tie ties. And I know when I leave a set or a wedding that people are going to have nothing but amazing things to say about me, even without seeing a photo, that I know that my presence will have made them feel good. I've literally booked weddings from guests who have had interactions with me at weddings, but haven't even seen a photo from it, which is pretty incredible. And it just goes to that tried and true, that kindness really does go a long way. One of the biggest commercial clients that booked me ever was the referral from a caterer on a set that I worked on 2 years ago. Think about that. That's absolutely insane to me. So there are 3 things that I really focus on that help me to create dynamic portraits, aside from giving like the best customer service I possibly can. And that's connection and comfort, trust, openly, and that allows me to openly create. So I focus on giving a genuine connection, and the comfort of my clients means everything to me, because if I know that they're comfortable, I can gain their trust, and that's going to allow me to openly create and give them direction and poses that I know that they're going to be able to do with ease. Having the freedom to openly create is going to put you in a position to do your best work. And in order for me to create emotion and like really creative driven portraits, or to capture organic moments, I know I need to create a very comfortable atmosphere at first. So with every client, I treat them as if I'm hosting friends. So if you think about it, if you are hosting friends, things that you would do would be making sure you have food available, refreshments. You would have checked previously if anyone had any allergies. I'll have candles going, music, and even with music, I'll say like, oh, what are you listening to these days? And try to play something to get them more comfortable, not just play whatever I want to play. And that goes a long way. So anytime you are with your clients, make sure that you are treating them as if you are hosting a friend. Establishing a good first connection. That seems something that should be really obvious, but I'm amazed at how many people kind of glaze over this, because connection starts from your very first interaction, and it shouldn't end even after the session. So that first impression to your clients is everything. And there's tons of ways to do this. You can skip generic emails, personalize them. Your response time is huge. If you're taking more than 3 days to get back to people, you really need to have some sort of automated email saying that like you get your response time is that, versus them checking your email the next day or the next day after that. Chatting on the phone for some people, chatting on the phone is personally my nightmare, but for some people, they need that in order to make that connection with others, or of course you can meet in person. When I first started, I was doing a lot more phone calls and meeting in person, but now that so much of my work is referrals, I don't find that people need that. So a lot of the time, I'm meeting people for the first time on their wedding day or at their engagement shoot. And it's really important that you show a genuine interest and you don't make people feel like a number. If you're in a place where you're booking regularly or with ease, that's great. But you have to remember that this is still a really big deal for your clients. Clients are talking to their friends and their families, and they're obsessing about their outfits. They're losing sleep before the session. So don't lose sight of that. You have to really take it back and remember what it was like for you the first time you were photographed, or even the first time you picked up your camera and had to go to a shoot. All of those nerves and insecurities are very real for them. So I make sure I address that at all of my shoots, because photo shoots are normal to us, but not to others. So don't lose sight of that, and don't treat them like it's no big deal and that they should just be comfortable off the get-go. Their comfort should be your number one. If you're not comfortable, you won't be able to capture those raw and beautiful emotions. And if they're not comfortable, they're not going to be able to provide that for you. So think about your own behavior when you're with a good friend versus a stranger. Your body language, your tone of voice. I know that if I'm talking to a stranger, my voice is a little bit higher and I'm just like sitting up with better posture than if I'm talking to friends or family. This is my normal tone of voice. I'm a little bit more relaxed in my shoulders. So I try to model that to my clients, because I don't want them showing up and being like this and me being like, oh, like, you feel good? Okay, great. And vice versa. If I am like this, I know that my clients are going to pick up on my nervous energy and be like that too. So if you are going into a session and you need a minute, take a minute. Even if you need to excuse yourself, make up a reason. If you're finding that you have that like stress sweat going on and you're talking to your client and something about your interaction with them, or just the scale of the shoot is like making it feel like high energy and you need to take a minute, excuse yourself and say anything like, oh, I just need to change my battery. You hang out, get relaxed. Just taking that little moment to kind of collect yourself and take a breath can make all the world and the difference of like how this shoot goes. Or if you're shooting and maybe a pose isn't working or something, you're getting caught up in something, sometimes I'll be like, oh, I just need to get a new memory card. And I'll just like take a minute, take a breather, collect myself and go back. So as much as it is important for you to focus on them being comfortable, it's also so crucial for you to model that to your clients. Because at the end of the day, trust is everything. And if you are genuine and honest and compassionate with them, they will trust you. This is also why I show a lot of my personal life online, because I know that this allows clients to get to know me better and it builds on that trust. And this is why complete strangers are willing to send money to me without seeing me, or take off their clothes within minutes of seeing me in an arty way, not in a gross way. But that is from years of building up trust and being kind to my clients, and then them speaking about those experiences to their friends. So genuine compliments are like a big thing for me. So things that I do throughout a shoot are compliments, safe shots. I keep talking throughout, and these are all things that I'm doing to focus on building connection. But when I say compliments, I mean like give real, genuine compliments, not like nice hair. Like I'll say things like, I'll make an effort to recognize something beautifully unique to them, like their freckles or maybe a cool tattoo that they have. When I say safe shots, I always personalize and customize every session depending on the client, what they're hoping for, depending on their height or their vulnerabilities. Like if they tell me they don't like their side profile. But I always start off with safe shots at a flattering angle to show them first. And I notice when I do that, I just see their shoulders relax and then kind of be like, oh, okay, wow, that looks beautiful. And that automatically builds in some of that like cushion for trust for them to be like, okay, she knows what she's doing. I don't look as bad as I think I do. And I just love seeing their confidence go up from there and automatically see that they feel better in their skin. And when I shoot, I am not at all a fly on the wall. I am talking and directing the entire session. Like I need to drink 4 water bottles after a shoot because I am never not talking. But by talking through it, I'm distracting the client from worrying about, you know, how they think they look, if they think their sides look too big, or if their hair wasn't quite the way they wanted it to be, or if I'm noticing a blemish that they have. By talking, I'm distracting them and asking questions about them, and they don't even realize that they're doing all these beautiful poses. And sometimes we're just talking like, oh, by the way, that looks great. Just like lower that shoulder. Perfect. And at first, clients don't realize that I'm falling in love with the way the light is hitting their collarbone or the way that they're brushing their hair back. I'm not focusing on the things that they fear that I am. So by narrating what I'm looking at or falling in love with, I've really noticed a big difference in their confidence skyrocketing. Even when it comes to playing music, like I said, I always play music that clients prefer because this helps relax them. But I always find that just that music or sound filling up empty space, empty breaks in a conversation is huge. So, and I'll find it even gives me things to talk about, because a lot of people that I mentor will say, well, I'm not funny, or like I'm a little bit more shy. So then I'll say, okay, well then focus on music. And then it'll also give you a point of conversation being like, oh, have you heard they're coming to town, or blah, blah. Like, or like, oh, did you ever go to this concert? Like, there's just like little interactions you can make because you are playing with music. And when it comes to food and refreshments, like I said, I always check in to see if they have allergies and preferences. And even just doing something as little as that makes people feel more comfortable with you, that you would give the time and the care into knowing that they need to, that they're celiac if I'm going to have refreshments and food out. I almost always meet my clients at a shoot for the first time. So making sure that I do all of these things to help them get as comfortable as possible, as quick as possible, is key. And this is another reason why I offer a lot of direction and prompts when it comes to posing clients, because knowing that they do not need to know how to model is a huge stress reliever for them. So I help pose clients from their head to their toes. I'm constantly looking for ways to flatter them in angles that they tell me that they want to highlight. And this helps me, or this helps them to know that I want to customize their session around them versus having like pose 1, 2, 3 that I always go to. And I will also demonstrate or show photos to further explain what I want them to do. I'll never just like show poses at a client, because in the very like small possibility they could be like, sorry, what? I don't understand. I don't want them to lose any confidence in that. I'd rather exactly show what I want them to do so they know what they want to do. You want to keep that confidence up. And don't wish for your clients to turn it into perfect lighting. Direct them. Don't wish that they would change an awkward hand gesture or a placement. Move them, or set them up in a way that will allow them to make these natural gestures. Not only will this show the client that you know what you're doing, it will also make them feel more comfortable, because it'll ensure that you get what you need to get out of the session, and you will also save time. I feel like I've mentored artists where I see them trying to pose a client and they're kind of like going, okay, I don't know if that's working. Let's try this. Or like they seem not sure of themselves, and I can quickly see that confidence seeping out of the client. So I will never, ever do that. Even if they suggest a pose or I suggest a pose and it's not working, I will pretend it's great or it's fine. I'll be like, okay, cool. Okay, now let's try something different, because the last thing I want to do is shake any kind of confidence from them. And after I've gotten what I need to feel confident about what I've done for them, then I'll always ask before I wrap, saying like, oh, was there anything that you wanted to try, or anything that you saw that you wanted to try to emulate in any few poses before we wrap? I find doing that always allows for some space. If maybe they were too nervous to do something at the beginning, then now by the end of the session, they're feeling really good and confident. And they might say like, oh, actually, yeah, I saw this, like, we try this. And again, it just shows that extra bit of kindness, not just like, okay, I got what I need, we're good. So that's always huge too. Make sure you ask clients before you wrap if there was anything that they have seen or wanted to try for you guys to do together. Ask your clients what their preferred side is. So this is huge because it shows that you are going to tailor the session around them, and it gently allows the conversation to dip into insecurities. So what I mean by that is when I ask a client like, oh, do you have a preferred side that you like to pose on? 9 times out of 10, they'll say, oh, no, it doesn't matter, just because they don't want to seem vain. But then I will say like, oh no, like if I'm in a photo, I don't know why, but I always just like turn to the left. Like that's just natural for me. Like if you were in a group photo, would you go straight on or would you kind of turn? And then because I've kind of allowed that like what feels initially as a vain conversation, I've allowed that to be like, no, this is totally fine, that's normal. Then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess I do turn this way. So even just doing something like that automatically makes them feel more comfortable with you. And sharing insecurities and things that we love about ourselves in a healthy and safe conversation also allows the client to feel more comfortable. That goes back to where I said sometimes clients will say to me, I don't really love my side profile, or I don't love this one thing. And then instead of me kind of diving deeper into that, I'll say like, oh, okay, so in a photo, like, what do you really love? Or like, and I'll be like, tell me it's your eyebrows or your eyes, or like, and I'll focus on something that I think is like really uniquely beautiful to them. And then they'll be like, yeah, a lot of people say this. And it just kind of switches the conversation, but gives me that piece of information so I know that there's maybe certain poses or things that I wouldn't do because I know that one thing is an insecurity for them. Posing hands. This is something that I see a lot of artists forget to do, and it definitely translates into how a client feels, and how it translates with their confidence, and also how the photo translates with confidence. So posing hands is arguably the most important thing to focus on when it comes to making someone feel comfortable. I'm always checking in to make sure hands are posed in a really organic and natural way. I either like them to be really soft or firm and to show emotion. I really like that feeling of like intimacy or passion in it, especially if they're making direct eye contact. But that can be translated through a light touch or through how I am posing their hands. So by light touch, what I mean are things like this, where she's just kind of like drawing on his face. Again, I had her like lightly playing with her curls or with hands. That's an easy one. And here is kind of a mix. So where his thumbs are on her jawline, I never get people to hold still or stagnant poses. So here, if you saw a video clip of it, he's like gently moving his finger back and forth. That also like keeps them distracted instead of like holding a stiff pose as well. And here, same thing, a groom was getting ready in the morning, but his hands to me were like crucial of like storytelling here. Again, showing off a groom's jewelry, just like a soft touch on her back. And then when I say firm grip, so here, it's still like a soft pose, but he's like pulling her back and they're like laughing. Here, he's holding her tight. But again, it doesn't look like aggressive, it's just like a firm grip. Here, the way he's holding the back of her head, it still looks soft. And I know when I dissect my work, I'm always trying to mix soft and like hard, I guess, or firm. And I'm always trying to play off the two of those. So here, it still is like he's holding her waist very firm, but it's still translating as like a soft or playful pose. Because hands can get awkward real fast if you are not posing them. And I find that with guys, especially, yeah, I'll see it with groomsmen, like they'll do like lasers in their hands or do fists. So it looks like they want to punch you just because they're nervous or they're focusing on all of the other things you're telling them to do. So I have to make sure that I'm always giving them a role. So I'll tell them to either play with their hair or their clothing, their face. Same thing for girls. I'll get them to play with their dress or their an object or somebody else around them. You just don't want dead hands. Shoulders are another big thing. A super important thing I found that I'm focusing on a lot lately is shoulders. If you can have both, like hands and shoulders, amazing. And another thing too, which I'm going to talk about after, is kissing. So see how like it's still like soft that they're going in for a kiss, but it's not like in your face. I'll tell people a lot. I actually just posted about this session. I'll tell them if I do, because the actual kiss looks very like Marge Simpson to me a lot of the time because girls don't want to mess up their makeup. So it's rare that you get couples that will actually like do a real kiss, and not often does it translate or like look that arty or good in photos. So I'll tell people to like act like they're kissing with their teeth. And inevitably, when you say that, they'll be like, what? And then I'll like, just try kissing with your teeth. And then they'll get really close and start kind of like giggling and laughing. And it translates into like a really beautiful photo. But on top of that, while I was doing that, her shoulder initially was down and kind of relaxed, more like how his is in this photo. But just getting her to pop it kind of brought her body into him and totally changed the emotion of this photo. Same example here with the shoulder. She initially had hers back like how he does here. And because I got her to pop her shoulder forward and kind of like lean into him, it just looks so much more intimate and just translated overall into a better feeling of the photo. Another example, her shoulders were back, and it, like, again, shoulders back can come across really confident, but then I had her curl them forward, and it was a better outcome for what I was trying to achieve here. So if you haven't played with your client's shoulders or like with posing shoulders, I highly recommend you do. And other things that I focus on are like sensory points, so shoulders, neck, ears, collarbones. I think these are great for storytelling, and it also, I do find that my clients are fascinated that I am focusing on these things, and they're interested in it as well, because how often as a person are we thinking about how beautiful our like collarbone area is, or any of those kind of like trigger zones? So it's really intimate and really cool for an artist or someone to photograph those aspects of you, and it not just be about your eyes or your hands or something that feels a little bit more obvious. So ways that I could showcase this are obviously like putting on perfume. I'll get clients whispering into each other's ears, which inevitably leads to like giggling, which is great. I'll get them to play with each other's jaw lines, which sounds really weird, but while I'm doing these things where I'm getting them to do things that focus on trigger zones or like things that feel really intimate, like behind the ears, shoulders, your neck, it's also creating this really cool experience for them. And I find that clients often feel like after we've done a session together that they will be like, that was like a really cool date almost for us because the experience was so fun. And when you get a pose that you like, take a moment to breathe and figure out if there's a way that you can make slight adjustments for variety. So we had the pose on the left that I really liked, and I thought it was great. And then I was like, okay, just to like relax her body and just like snuggle him. And her instinct was to grab her foot and bring it in closer. And she like kind of snuggled into his hair. And even though it feels like a weird pose, like the way it translated, it looked really intimate and real. Like they were home by themselves, and it felt like very voyeurism. And I really, really loved how it turned out. So I also find if you get stuck and something how you are directing is not working, tell them like, pretend I'm not here and just kind of cuddle as if I wasn't here. And then you can make adjustments from there. So now that your clients are comfortable with you, big things that I highly recommend you do is challenge yourself to try different things. So try different angles, like get up, get high, get low, constantly move. I am sweating at the end of a session because I'm never not moving. Like for this photo, I sat in mud for this, but it's so worth it because one of the biggest highs from photography is being able to show clients unique perspectives of themselves. And that's also why I like showing off different, like unassuming body parts, because it does feel more intimate. Or like for this couple, I guarantee you they never had a photo like this of this angle of themselves. And what a beautiful thing to look back on when they're like 80. So automatically by showing them different perspectives of themselves, they are going to fall in love with the photos even more. Shooting movement. Shooting movement has allowed me to be really playful and have fun with clients. I really love the look of it, and it's also led into like a really fun experience. So getting them to like whip their dress back and forth, getting him to like pick her up and spin her a bunch of times, I find that I get really cool reactions out of the clients. And again, it like all feeds into that client experience. I love how this photo turned out because they were all cackling like in between breaks of us doing this, and it was turned into be like a really funny memory of the day because we were trying to force them to be serious. And then we did this also with the bride and the groom. And even though they come across as like very artistic and like moody, like we were laughing and having the time of our lives when I was posing that, because you're also, again, distracting them from insecurities, they're having fun, they're moving around. And I love the feeling that you get out of shooting movement with these clients. And it just keeps it interesting. And again, I think it leads into that more of that feeling of it feeling like you weren't supposed to be there. So getting them like dipping each other, whipping around, frolicking, like I'm always getting my clients moving. And again, I love this for the storytelling aspect of them like running back to their venue. Instead of for sparklers, having them like just like stand there and people put sparklers all around them, get them moving with each other, running back and forth. The joy in her face is like everything to me. And again, while I'm doing that, I'm also getting high, getting low. Obviously, my clients run a lot, but sometimes I make them walk, like in this example. But movement is so, so key to me to getting, to not having clients stand still and just hold each other and them wondering, like, when I'm not going to have a camera in their face, this is keeping them distracted. They're having fun. I'm getting really cool, unique perspectives from it. And I apply this to bridal party posing as well. I don't just shoot them straight on. I always like leading into different locations with showing them walk into it. So the biggest thing holding you back is that truly you're not pushing yourself. The key focus points I want you to take away from this are connection and comfort and trust. Take your time, focus on those things that I mentioned in this program, and really remember that at the end of the day, if you give people a good experience and you make the experience fun and feel safe, and you get to play and it's like upbeat, and then you also deliver amazing photos on top of that, there's nothing but like good things that they can say about you. And if you give them beautiful photos but you treat them terribly, you're going to have the opposite effect. And I promise you that if you follow my sage advice, you're going to feel amazing after every session. How much time do we have? Am I like going over totally?
No, you're doing great. I'm loving this. So like,
Okay.
take the time you need, man. We got a few questions lined up already, and I got a few things I want to
Okay.
say to you, but please keep rocking it, dude.
Okay. I'm almost done. I'm just like realizing like I'm a chatty person if you haven't noticed. And also another thing that helps make your clients feel really confident is backups. So when I talk about backups, I mean backups for weather, for lighting, for anything that could go wrong in a session. That means whenever I drive to sessions, I have like a trunk load of things, including like backup outfits for myself or for clients. They don't know it's like I have backup outfits for them, but I'll be like, oh, funny, I actually have this if anything were to happen, because the last thing I want a client to do is feel not confident or insecure or embarrassed. So I try to have every single backup possible in my brain with me and available, especially if I'm not shooting in my studio. So, and when I say backups for locations or lighting or for weather, is the last thing you want to do is look like you are scrambling for a different solution. So I don't know, maybe that comes from my teaching that I'm the queen of backups for anything. And also be extra with your clients. So doing little things. So I've posted about a lot on my social media, but I have the Canon selfie printer because anytime I work with clients, I like to do a little print for them. And for weddings, I'll do a couple prints. And I usually try to like be sneaky about it instead of just handing it to them. I like try to like tuck it somewhere that they'll find it, because I love when clients leave with something physical. So during the session or the wedding, I sneakily take iPhone shots and videos, and then I quickly upload it to the printer software and do that. And then even after I shoot with them for weddings, instead of just delivering a gallery and being like, thanks, I'll ask them if I can donate to their favorite charity in their name. Not only is that good for the environment, it gives back, it has sentimental meaning versus to your clients versus potentially sending them a gift they may not want, or risk sending like I used to gift champagne, but then you find that not every client drinks, or maybe they were pregnant or something. So when I switched to doing the donating to a charity, I found that was like a bigger hit. And unfortunately, almost everyone has something that they're close to that they can do, but my clients really love that. So I highly recommend it. Healthy boundaries. Protect your time, charge your worth. You don't want to get stuck as the cheap photographer, but be realistic about your capabilities and what you can offer your clients. Don't pretend to be more seasoned than you are, because that will just shoot you in the foot. Outsource anything you find you are overwhelmed with or overworked with, and be clear and have contracts with your clients. I know those things sound scary, but if you do all of these things and you have healthy boundaries with your clients, they're going to feel good about that too. And of course, proper gear allows us to create dynamic photos and push the limits safely. I've been shooting professionally with Canon for my entire career, and just that was organically, like even like I was using like little like pocket power shoot cameras before I was using it as my professional gear. And funny enough, I have this old photo here that I realized I just shot a new flat lay of like all of my updated gear. Maybe I can show it after my keynote if I'm sharing my screen, but this was like my main go-tos when I first started. And now I have like a very extensive gear bag. And Vistek is actually like where I was buying all of my gear from. So it's really cool to do a presentation with Vistek for that. And again, like I said, the biggest thing that I want you guys to take away from this, that yes, gear and equipment is important. Going to quality places where they have artists that know what they're doing or talking about, that if you say, I want to shoot this, and they can help you purchase certain things, it's important. But I find even over equipment and tools and programs and all of those things that I talk about, so many people focus on too much of, you are not pushing yourself. I promise you, even if you think you're pushing yourself, it's not enough, especially if you're just starting out. But key points that I want you to take away is be a good human, create comfortable atmospheres no matter where you are, guide your clients through posing, backups are king, think of unique ways to make it extra for your clients or to make the session special for them, have healthy boundaries, and of course, have proper gear to support your art. And lastly, I'm almost done. I want you guys to know there is space for you. I really want to assure you that there is space for you in this industry. I know if you go online, it seems like we are oversaturated, that there is wildly talented people, and that you may feel like you'll never reach that, or that a location or equipment or a certain type of client is so out of reach for you. And it's just not. It just takes time. And know that there is space for anyone in this industry. Putting yourself out there, putting your art out there is terrifying. And at first, I didn't have a lot of support. It can be lonely, it can be intimidating, but you really need to main character yourself and just main character the heck out of your life and your experience, and know that if I deserve to be here and I deserve all of these different accolades in my industry and my experience, so do you. So I hope you took something away from this. I hope this was helpful. I'd love to answer any questions that you guys have.
Amazing. Oh man, thank you so much for this. We've got, like I said, a couple of questions, but I want to just take a moment, Nicole, and say like something from the honest, truest part of my heart. There were so many things in there that you talked about that I didn't expect, that were creative things that I didn't really see coming, that really landed with me. And actually, because I'm off mic when you're presenting, I was messaging a friend of mine and I was like, you should see her photos. They're like unbelievable. And I said this in the message. I was like, she captures couples in a way I don't think I've ever seen any couples or wedding photographer capture couples. Like, you can see in your photos how much they love each other. And I know that some of that is the way that you set it up, but I feel like so many couples photographers are really good at just staging a really nice shot, but they're missing the love and the emotion there. And the way, like even the kissing thing, about just kissing with your teeth, but there's something about that. You're right, because otherwise it's just a smushed thing. And like, oh my God, like you see the joy in them and you see the playfulness that we sometimes lose in a lot of romantic, or couples photographs. I'll tell you a couple other things I really loved about what you said. I love that you talked about, because I do a lot of fashion photography, and I'm always looking for the good side. And what I usually do is I just get them to scan. I was like, here, listen, you're gonna follow my hand, right? I'm like, I'm gonna do this, and I go, right, and then I just kind of go through it, and I'm like, okay, I think this is your good side, and like I'll take a few other test shots, but just intuitively asking them, well, if you're just taking a selfie or someone's taking a photo of you, which side do you usually like? What's intuitive? And I've never even considered doing that before, and that's so intelligent.
Well, it's so funny because I think as an artist, you can detect their good side first.
Absolutely.
But there's something about allowing them to say it to you that also opens up that like vulnerability door. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, and also this, or like I find it because I asked that, even though I'll look at them and be like, oh, it's this side.
Yeah.
And I always know.
Yeah.
So even if they don't know, I'm like, okay, I know.
Absolutely.
But,
absolutely. And
it just
go ahead. Sorry.
allows for that. Yeah.
And I really loved like the soft touch stuff. I mean, we see this a lot too, but there's a way that you get the couples to like engage with each other physically that has a really strong emotional pull. Like I'm kind of welling up a little bit, to be honest, like thinking about it. Like it's really powerful. And I think the success of your business must also not just be your business acumen and about all these steps that you do to make sure that the couple is engaged with you the whole time and they're really buying into the process. But I think you take something from yourself and you bring that to them, and you bring this gift to them that is a way for them to see themselves in a way that they want to communicate to the world about how much they care about each other. So I think I'm blown away, honestly. Like I'm completely flabbergasted. So thank you so much for taking the time to show us that.
Thank you, Dale.
2 questions here. We got 3 questions actually. First question is from Chris. Chris says, I used to shoot full-time while holding a career. I did this for years and I became decent. About 14 years ago, I moved for work and I fell out of photography. His follow-up question is, how does one get back into this world, into shooting like this, in view of where the technology is and the potential threat of artificial intelligence?
Okay, so there's a couple things here. So in terms of like getting back, I think especially if you're in a new location or anything like that, I think it's really important and good for you as an artist to get involved in like community events or even like workshops. I find that those are really inspiring ways for me to meet other artists or learn about different things going on in the industry. But even when I say community events, they could be a community event in your town or your city, just to kind of like show up and show who you are, show that you care about being a part of those events. And another thing with AI, I know a lot of photographers or creatives in general feel threatened by AI, but for me, I've utilized it in a way that has helped my business so much that I'm so grateful for it. I think obviously, like there are some industries that I understand, like if you do product photography or something like that, there's obviously more challenges with AI around that. For me, or anyone who shoots portrait work or wedding work, or we're dealing with people, again, so much of my presentation was about I'm creating an experience for clients, and so many people just want to come and like have that experience and then get like beautiful like organic photos from it, that I know that even if they want to pretend that they were in Bali and take like an AI background and put their faces on it, it's just not the same. Where I've looked at the positive side of AI is that it's allowed me to extend certain backdrops, or it's allowed me to cull my photos faster, or I've used it for like helping me with my editing. So there's so many like beautiful aspects of AI, and I think a lot of people who have gotten out of the industry and who are coming or who are dancing with the idea of going back are really, really scared that it's not worth it, or because of AI that they shouldn't do it. And that's just not true. I promise you it's not true.
That's a great answer. Awesome.
But don't let it stop you.
Yeah, and I've always thought of AI, I mean, certainly there is some frightening aspects to it in terms of, having certain people say, well, I don't need to hire somebody now. Like, I could imagine one day maybe where someone just puts up like a 360 camera and this at their wedding, and it just like captures all these moments and edits them and like modifies them in such a way. But I think even then, I think there's something really intelligent about a human connection. And I think that's what I want to keep coming back to is your photography isn't a camera that's self-clicking, right? Like you are engaging with a human because you are a human and you know what matters to humans, right? And so at the end of the day, when other humans can trust you and feel connected to you, I think there's no intelligence, there's no artificial intelligence in the world that can replace that. So no. I appreciate that. Next one is, this is not a name that I feel I can pronounce, although it could be a handle. It's Netstrike, I think. Hello from Toronto. When do you know when it's time? So this is just a geared question, because you did just speak about sort of like upgrading your equipment and things like that. When do you know when it's time for an upgrade? Either skills, it's a great question, or equipment, or a combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both. For me, a good telltale sign that I need an upgrade is that I get bored or it becomes like easy, or I feel like I'm coasting and I'm just kind of going through the motions of what I'm doing, versus when I throw on like a tilt shift lens, or I try shooting something in a different perspective with my 28-70, like it completely changes how I look at the scene or the set or the photo. So even for me, when I'm shooting, I'm changing lenses quite a bit throughout a session, because I also don't want the entire session to be one kind of focal length for the client. It also shows like dynamic variety for them to see tilt shift, macro shots, wide shots, and it keeps it visually very interesting for them and also fun for me. So I know that if I'm shooting something and it feels fun, I'm giving more of my all because I'm having such a great time doing it, than if I'm just kind of like shooting it to shoot it. Like that's the worst feeling for me, is packing up my gear after a shoot and being like, yeah, that was okay. Like I never want to feel like that.
Incredible. I totally agree. Absolutely. So one last question here. I know that, let me just, I didn't pre-read this, so I want to make sure. Okay. Yep. This is actually another fantastic question. I know that photographers have that photographer's eye. You know, again, that same thing that we talked about in terms of you just know what the right side is, right? Or that sort of sense, so to speak, as they're saying here. And the question is, how do you develop or nurture that sense as an amateur or semi-pro photographer?
So honestly, the best thing you can do is pick up your camera every single day. Like when I tell you that in the beginning, I was shooting multiple times every day, I'm not joking. I was. Because even if I was just shooting for fun, or if I was like, hey, I would borrow a friend or a family member and being like, I want to try shooting in like hard light. Because I would want to try to experiment as much as I could, either with people or objects before I had paying clients, so that I really looked confident and knew what I was doing. So again, that translated to them and that they trusted me and we created magic. So the best thing you could do is be shooting until you get blisters on your hands. Like honestly, it's the best thing you can do.
Amazing. That seems to be all for now, but obviously this video is going to remain online for perpetuity on our YouTube channel, and we're going to have all the links down below for where the audience can find you, whether it's your website or your social media channels. Nicole, thank you so much for this amazing presentation today. I really sincerely appreciate it. I hope the audience got as much out of it as I know I did, and I wish you all the best for the future. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye-bye now.